So, congrats on getting the all clear from the doctor, the surgeon to return to play and get back at it.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it was just a couple of days ago, but I was quite nervous going into the appointment because I knew, since obviously I got injured just before the Olympics, so um, I've been working hard, kind of, on myself and doing all my rehab stuff in the background and um, building up to that moment. So, uh, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but I was definitely stoked to get the good news from the surgeon and get the all clear to pretty much return to play now.
Nice one. So, what was it exactly? Discs in your neck.
Yeah, so it was about 2 weeks before the Olympics, and we were just doing some contact train. It wasn't even a game or anything, and we were just doing some contact that training, and I kind of like something happened, and a knee kind of went into the side of my head by accident, and I felt like but I
Yeah.
guess we feel that all the time when we play, and I didn't think too much of it, and it wasn't until the next morning I woke up and I was like, oh man, my neck's real stiff, and so anyway, I warmed up, trained, and when I went to pass the ball in one of our drills, like I got pins and needles all down my arms, and I thought, man, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
So I jumped off, and then after training, the doc came and seen me, and I think the bit that confused a lot of people was I still had all my strength and like no numbness or anything like that. So they thought it might have not have been as worse as what it actually was. Yeah, then obviously I went and got the scan, and it come up with there was two discs that were bulging onto my spinal cord. So I think it was like C3, 4, 5, and 6. And pretty much, yeah, got told you're not going to the Olympics and possibly you're probably not going to play ever again. So it was a bit of a
Jeez.
double whammy in one conversation. So I don't know if I know a lot of people would find it hard to believe, but it almost took the how do you say it? Took like the pain away of not going to the Olympics because it was almost like something worse was there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I was almost had to forget about that. Like I was gutted, but and focus more on like my whole life could be changing
Yeah.
in that one moment. So yeah, that's kind of what happened. How I got told. And obviously, because missing out on the Olympics, the surgeon just said to me, "Well, you don't have any tournaments coming up. Let's just, because you've got all your feelings and you're symptom free, let's just wait it out and see if your neck does some good for you." And yeah, it did. So one of the discs ended up fully healing right back, and it's fine now. And so then only one disc needed surgery, so I ended up getting a disc replacement in the C5/6. And yeah, there's a lot of players who have, I think, like Dan Carter, and there's a few players who have come back from their injury. So yeah, become a return to play, and I've just been grinding away in the back with all the niggly rehab
Yeah.
exercises, trying to strengthen it back up. But yeah, that's probably kind of a breakdown of what happened.
Yeah. It's mad the way you say it, that it's like you're missing out rugby, but then it's more serious, like life.
Mm. Well, being a mum, like the conversations turned quickly from playing to like, what's my life going to be like post rugby,
Yeah.
and I had to really take that into consideration when choosing to have the surgery to return to play. Whether I just leave it and just because I don't have any symptoms, just don't risk it, and so like I did a lot of thinking and a lot of talking with the doc, physio, and obviously my partner, my family, and I don't know. There was just something inside me that said, you're not done now. I think you can get back out there. If, like I've always said, if there's a will, there's a way. If you really want something, you can get it done. And so I just signed another contract with New Zealand Rugby for just the 1 year one, and I just said to myself this year, like, just be the best you can be. There's no pressure to like anything. I just don't have any pressure on my shoulders, and it's quite nice. And so I'm just gonna train, get myself to a place hopefully where I can play. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And it's quite nice to finally be in that state of mind.
Cool. Yeah. So you're not like looking too far down the line, like obviously Olympics in 3 years. You just want to get about out there, have fun, get back at it.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, it would be amazing to go to the next Olympics, and things like age and that's never ever stopped me. You know, like heaps of people, oh, you're old, all that stuff. But I've seen amazing athletes do amazing things at an age where they shouldn't.
Yeah,
And I don't have to look far. You know, I look across to my brother, obviously, and he had a long career, and he was plagued with a lot of injury, but he got through, and he still was able to do stuff at the top level. So that's never phased me. Like I don't. That's not. It's what I want, and it's nice to be in a stage where mentally it's my own standards, and my standards is I train with the best team in the world. If I can keep up with them or beat them at training, then I'm good enough. So yeah, I am like I won't lie. I'm a little bit nervous to obviously when I finally do return out on that field with the girls to see kind of where I'm at and to go against them and to see if I can get my groove back um, because I've been out for the longest time I've ever been out of the game. So yeah, it's a challenge though that I'm looking forward to.
yeah. It's interesting to say about the older athletes as well these days. Like you say, your brother Sonny Bill playing to his mid 30s, Roger Federer, Tom Brady, like all these Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, like all these superstars at the top of the game are old.
Well, if you look at our team, on average, the starting seven, for the last 5 years has been our oldest players. so,
Yeah,
and like they deserve the spot too. Like I'm obviously at training every day. I see the grind they put in. I see the way they carve up. I see what they bring to the team, and they deserve their spot. So. They lead from the front and they get the starting spot, and they just happen to be the oldest in the team. I will say though, like I've played sports my whole life, and coming from a semi-professional sport of touch rugby, my mindset back then, pre-kids, pre-life, pretty much, when you're just living in the dream, like almost like you could do anything and just turn up and carve. As you get older, you don't have that luxury, and you experience things in life that give you a different perspective of where you are, give you a different appreciation of what you have, and all of that plays a role into your mental capacity and what you almost physically can do more than other young players because they don't
mm,
have that mental toughness yet, because and it's no fault of theirs, they just haven't experienced life, they haven't been through some of those things, traumas or good times where you want to live that again and you know how to get there, they haven't had that, so that experience is you can only get it obviously with time.
yeah, it's so true. Say what you say there. Like you think when you're a kid, you think everything's easy and it's all going to be a straight line, and then you get like I don't know, punched in the face, or like Mike Tyson used to say, and then
Yeah.
it's like you do that adversity does like make you so much stronger that you can't really explain to a I don't know, you can't really explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even, like, my first big injury was when I was 18, 19. I did my ACL, and I pretty much, yeah, had to miss out on a World Cup selection to go for touch. And that was hard. So I've probably, like, from a young age, I've had to mentally come back from injuries, and I've had my fair share of injuries and push through that. And then you, on top of that, um, I was working, and you're paying to play touch. So with touch, you're paying to play in your backyard. You're paying to get a black singlet after getting selected. You do all that hard work and you get selected, and they're like, "Cool, can we have 4 grand from you to play 20 minutes from your house?" And
Wow.
it's like, whoa, but that was the norm, and that's the grind you went through. You had a job, you worked to pay to play the sport you had so much passion for, and even though it was heaps, the community came together, your family came together, raffle tickets, selling anything, sausage sizzles, like all of that stuff just to get on the field. So it meant that much more. So when I moved to rugby, it was almost like, what, you're going to pay me to play
Yeah.
and train, like, and this can be my job, like I could do this every day, I don't have to go and do that and then find time to train, like it's a crazy world, and yeah, I'm just so grateful, yeah.
Talk to me a bit about touch. So, like, I'm from Ireland, as you can probably tell. We don't really do it so much because it rains all the time. But I have a few buddies from Australia and Kiwis, and they're mad into it. And like, yeah, I kind of understand it. But yeah, talk to me about what like touch is like in New Zealand.
Uh, Touch is probably, like I always say, is the most underrated sport in the world. because of how big it is in most countries, but locally, it's not like, so you could go down to most fields in a few countries, in lots of countries actually, and
Yeah.
not everyone knows how to play a game of touch footy, and then on top of that, you start bringing in the skills that can transfer to so many rugby league sevens, all these different ball sports. It's just so underrated and what it actually can do. And then on top of that, like my time of touch, I will forever be grateful because of the people I met, the places it took me, the lessons I learned. So I've learned a lot through touch, through selection, non-selection, what it takes to be a captain of a national team, what it was like kind of first going in, being that newbie, and you're looking to all these people, you're just like starstruck, and it's just, and now you're in that national team with them at the age of 15, 16. You're like, wow. So for me, everything that touch has brought me, and it was also my gateway into sevens, I'm always grateful for. But it's like so many life lessons and so many perspectives that make me who I am as a sevens player.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so were you mad into touch like from age of like you said, a young age, and was that always the goal to you went on to captain the Touch Blacks, and was that always the goal to get to the top?
I actually, when I was younger, this is so weird, but I always kind of like, when they go, what do you want to be when you're older? And it was always a silver fern for sports, or because netball was our national women's sport, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like rugby, you didn't play rugby really if you were a female.
Yeah.
And and I wanted to be a lawyer because they made lots of money. Like that was
Yeah,
kind of the
like yeah.
stereotype, Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. When you're
um,
younger,
it,
you get told you got to do this
yeah.
job or whatever, and it's like, oh.
And then I went to school and I was like, yeah, we'll cross off that lawyer one.
Yeah. What's plan B?
Yeah. And then I actually played a lot of like I say, I played school netball throughout out my years, and a couple of rep teams in that. But I kind of was just playing local touch with a team, with a friend's so a friend of mine at school, they had a family team, and I was playing with them, and we used to win the comps down at the local module. And then a guy come up to me, and his name was Peter Walters, and he's like the legend of touch. And he said to me, oh, do you want to come play for my club team? And I was looking at him like, nah, man, why would I want to play with you? I'm in the winning team. Like, who are you? And then he ended up, he goes, oh, I'll call you. Bye bye, got my number. He left, and my team come up to him, and they're like, oh my God, there's Peter Walters. What did he want? And I was like, who? And they're like, Peter Walters. He's like the legend of touch. And I said, oh, he said to go play with his team, Galaxy. And I don't know if you know, but Galaxy Touch is like a worldwide club. Like it's in so
Okay.
many countries. And yeah, so they were like, you have to go play. And it kind of grew from there. So he took me under his wing, and I would have been about 12, 13. And that's when I started probably learning like, oh, because they actually were in the championship grade, Galaxy. We were in the one under. I didn't know
Friendlier,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so I thought we were like the
The
shit, but
shit,
really,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so I went, and then I started to find out what like real touch was like, competitive touch, like plays, and he just taught me everything, took me under his wing. And I think the best thing about it was he took me into the mixed grade, and so I was constantly playing against men, or like teenage boys, and I knew that I really wanted to play competitive touch when I like frothed at the thought of playing against men rather than women.
Yeah.
I wanted to beat the guy. I was not scared at all. Put me in the middle, or I'd do plays with Pete on guys. Like I loved it so much, and I don't know. I just kind of, when you just have that natural feel for a sport, so it just was comfortable, and it was just exciting, and I couldn't wait to play. And yeah, so that's kind of like how, and then I just started going through all the levels. I think I played for Auckland, like so in our interprovincial, like a rep level when I was 15, my first nationals in the opens grade. Um, and then I just kind of went from there, and then it kind of got to a crossroad where I had to choose, because then there was one national, so you play for your province, like your cities and that, and then from there they pick a squad for New Zealand's, like New Zealand Open Mix, New Zealand Women's, and New Zealand Men's. And the women's coach and the mixed coach had both approached me to play, to like go to the camps to try and get a place in their teams. And I said to Pete, what do I do? Like he's like my dad in touch, and he just said, as much as I would love you to come and play New Zealand with me in mixed, he goes, I just think you're like a waste. Like I think you are a leader, a born leader, and you need to be directing play. That's what you're good at. So I think you should take your chances in the women's grade. And I did, and I made the team with another player called Renee Whitcliffe. So you might know when she's in the women. So me and her been friends since we were very young, and yeah, so we went and played that tournament. It was all nations, and we ended up Aussie had never been beaten, and we only lost them in a drop off. So it was real cool. 2005 that was, and I played my last women's in 2015. So 10-year kind of stint in there, and it was quite satisfying that in that 2015 World Cup we were the first ever team in like since the 80s to beat an Australian Open women's team at a World
Nice.
Cup. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Good way to sign out.
yeah, it was, and I was actually in transitioning into sevens while I was playing there, and obviously I went to the Olympics that next year, and I came back, and I remember like I started doing weights and all that kind of stuff, training every
Yeah.
day, and I came back and everyone was kind of like, "What the heck?" Like I had bigger arms than the guys in there, and I could throw the ball all of a sudden like really far because my
Yeah.
touch ball is a little bit smaller than a rugby ball, so yeah, it was a very cool time.
It's cool to say there's well about when you're younger playing with the boys or whatever, and like the challenge of that, and like wanting the challenge, wanting to be in the most difficult environment. And it's so good for young people to understand that. I think just that you're going to get better by, playing an age up, or like
Mm.
your case playing against boys or whatever. But at the time some people are like, oh, don't do this, I want the easier route.
Yeah, I think it's just there's some younger, like, so my sister was just as talented as me, my twin sister, and but she never wanted to kind of do that, like go handy and I
Mm.
never like criticized. Oh, like she yelled at me a few times on the field, like shut up, relax, because I was always like, no, 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 I
Too
want to win.
intense.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, so we're obviously cut from the same piece of cloth, but we're total opposites in how we want. So it's when parents or people are trying to put people in those positions, it's usually up to the kid, and they usually either thrive or they
Mm.
just want to get out of there, and they're uncomfortable. And um, it's so awesome to see some of those young kids, now today, even like step up, and they're just like, I'm all good, like don't care if I fail. And I think that's probably the biggest thing you see of kids is they're too scared to fail because they
Yeah.
think if I fail once then I can never do it again. But
Yeah.
like we fail lots in life, and it's how we react to that that's important. So, and how the people around us react. As a mum
Mm.
myself, I see my kids fail a lot of times, but if I was to yell at them every time they fail, they're not going to want to do it again.
Mm.
So you got to just keep supporting them, and maybe they keep thriving and they get better and better, or maybe they don't, and that's okay. Like it's yeah, definitely
Yeah.
a yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And when you talk to me about touch, so like you're in high school, and then when you were 18, like leaving high school, you were playing touch. Obviously now you're a full-time pro, have been for a few years, but like with touch, you're working as a postwoman, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
then play like, so you're like working away and then playing at the top level of your sport. Like, how was that?
Um, it was hard when I turned 18, and I reckon the hardest thing for me when I was turned 18 was, so I'd been playing about 3 years, kind of in that top level, and then I turned 18, 19, and I did my ACL, and it was
Mm.
and then working on the top of that, like having to be out from work, be out from touch, and I put on so much weight. I put on like, I don't know, about 10 kgs, and it was the first time ever I was like, because when you're younger, you just eat whatever you want, drink
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
you
yeah,
want,
yeah.
and you turn up and you carve like
You're
it's so
grand.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your body's just loving you. And then all of a sudden you turn 18 and you're starting to turn into a woman. And it's like, where did you come from? Your 10 kgs, and you get injured. And so, yeah, I definitely struggled at times, but I learned to grow up really quick and be independent. My family was so my mum and dad split when just before we went to intermediate, and so for us that was tough because my mum and dad went to two different houses, obviously, and we had to change. So we were all set to go to a certain intermediate with all our friends, me and my twin sister, and the boys were already at college. They were at Mount Albert Grammar, and we had to change because we went and lived with my mum, and she moved right next to Avondale Intermediate, and we were supposed to go to Wesley over in Mount Albert. So that was real difficult, and my twin and I, we were just so lucky we had each other, and we kind of grew from that. And I think those kind of moments and taught me to be more independent too, and
Mm.
we had to learn and make new friends, and then as time went on, my family kind of like Sonny got their contract in Aussie, so my dad moved over there to help with him. Johnny was out working, my oldest brother, and then my sister ended up moving to Aussie, and then there was a time too in college, my mum moved over there, so I was actually the only one here in New Zealand finishing school, so I moved in with my nana, my mum's mum Denise, and having to be independent, like, when you usually your mum's at home making your lunches or giving you money and she's putting dinner on the table every day, like that was my role. Like, I was helping look after my nana. I had to catch a bus all of a sudden. Like, usually I just walk next door to school where we used to live, learning to catch a bus, doing all my own schoolwork, like my looking at my own reports, things like that. It was quite, some would say, really daunting. It was a bit, but I just grew up really fast, I think, and all of that, I think, has an impact on the head I have on my shoulders now in these later years, and how
Mm.
I probably can almost handle a little bit of pressure on my own more.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
It's so cool there, the way you say, like, just once again, like adversity, like looking back always on tough times, adversity. That's how we grow.
yeah.
And during it, was it tough during it? Were there ever like difficult during those times when you're in it?
Yeah, I remember, like, there's times where you think, why has my family all left me here? Like,
Yeah.
because I'm only like 17, 16. Why did they all just leave me here? And but it wasn't like that at all. It's just I knew that they all had their own things going on, like, and were struggling in other areas, and they were trying to make themselves better. And it just, I knew my mum would never go if she didn't think I was safe. And my nana was our closest thing in my mum's family. Like, we grew up with my nana, so I was always safe and I always felt loved. But there was definitely times where you would go home and it would just be you, or you'd have to somehow find a way to get to a training, or things like that. And they had done that. My parents had done that for us our whole lives, and then all of a sudden they're all over there, and I'm trying to, because my nana can't drive, and I'm trying to figure
Mm.
out ways. And that's kind of where my second circle of family comes into play big time, like Peter Walters, and I had mates from touch like Pete's daughter Kylie Walters, Delisha Weeper, like these names who stuck by me, and they would pick me up for all the trainings and almost kind of step into that role of making sure this young girl gets to these trainings and thrives where she can to be the best person she can be, and not fall into easy ways of what it is, when you're 16, 17, you can go down another track. So yeah.
Nice. So important, yeah, to have kind of mentors and people guiding you on the getting you on the right track, keeping you there.
Yeah, and I've had plenty in my time. Just so I'm just been very lucky to have been looked after by lots of people growing up in the sports world, and it's quite funny every time I get the opportunity, because my partner still plays touch. He'll go back to a nationals, and I'll go with him, and because I played with the Opens when I was younger, I go around and I don't even know any of the people my age really. I only
Yeah.
know all the older people, so I'm always over at the Masters tent saying hi to everyone and that, and it's so lovely to see them. And you talk about the memories and the moments you had with all of them, and in return they almost say, it's like they're like, thank you for making it, because I feel like I'm now part of your journey, which is real
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you mentioned there the ACL when you were 19. I listened to Sunnyville's book, and there's a part in that about you talk, or like the narrator talks about you have a partner where it's like, did you thinking of quitting, or you were just real down when that happened?
Yeah, so it was the so I'd done my ACL and I had put on all that weight, and I kind of like, I did my rehab really well, but the shape I was in was not nowhere near to compete. But I just, because I was still young, I went in and I played nationals, and it was kind of that first year I didn't get selected, and it was only a paper team that year, but there was and you're sitting there and you're just used to hearing your name get read out, and it didn't get read
Mm.
out, and I remember being like, what, like, who am I? Like, I'm nothing. I can't even make the team. Like, you're like, literally, like, you're a piece of
Yeah.
shit, Niall. Like, you're
Yeah.
just worthless. and all these thoughts are running, and you start to go into this big black hole, and you're like, well, if touch, if sports, if everyone, they don't know what, and then you start
Mm.
playing the blame game, and it's funny when you're that age, because when you play the blame game, you never look at yourself. It's always like
Mm.
your fault. You didn't do this. Why didn't you pick me? You don't know what you're talking about. But in reality, I got to sit down with Sonny Boy, and he just said, "Look, come down to Christchurch," because he was with the Crusaders at that moment, at that time, and he just said, "I'll get you. You can do posting down here." But he goes, "You just do that whenever you want some extra cash." And literally, he said, "All I want you to do is like do the food shopping, clean the house, and I'll get you a PT, smash your goals out, and I'll pay you like a job, so you don't have to just, so you can fit in." And almost like, when I think about it now, it was kind of like being a professional athlete. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't realize he was
First time.
almost, yeah, and so I got to live there, and my partner Tama come down with me as well, and he was postie too. That's how I met him. So he just carried on doing full time posting, and we both trained, and he got me a PT, Mikey D, down there, and yeah, I just had this mindset where I was like so grateful that he took me, like took me under his wing and said, like a big brother, and just said, and my oldest brother was there too, and which was really cool, and it was like being back with family. So
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved being in. So my oldest brother kept Sonny in line, when he thought he was the man, and then
Yeah.
and then Sonny and Johnny both kept me in line, and I just trained. My give back to them to say how grateful I was to train as hard as I can, and I dropped all the weight I'd put on, and I remember I went back and I just carved like in touch. I just was so like happy, and I just played my heart out, and I found the love for touch again. I actually wanted to play. I wanted to make the team, and I also had moments where I could talk, to my brothers, and they could give me honest feedback, and I always knew that it was from like a place of love. So whether it was kind of brutal honesty or a little get me up speech, I knew what was coming from a place of love, so I always took it in, and I really thank them for getting me out of a hole that if I didn't, who knows, I could have just been working a 9 to 5 and never kind of carried on in that path. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant you say there. Like switching that mindset of like just blaming when things don't go right to just taking it on yourself. I mean, like, what did I do wrong? Where do I need to get better?
Mm. Yeah, and I think that comes off a time of like like you get more mature, and you
Mm.
realize that the whole world doesn't revolve around you, and um, that things that happen, it could actually be your fault. Like,
Yeah,
and I've learnt with this team too now, that our sevens team, like, what role did you play in the outcome? Rather than saying, trying to look for all the roles that everyone else played, first of all, looked at what role you played, and accepted. And the biggest thing of growth is being able to accept, like I said earlier on, like failure, that, oh, actually, I fucked up there.
mm.
I didn't do that right, and that was the cause, instead of being like, oh, no, because that pass was shit, so I dropped it. Well, no, actually, it was okay, and you just dropped it. Like, just own it. It's all good. And but knowing that that one mistake or that failure doesn't define you. Mm,
Yeah. It's like you were saying earlier about just like your approach to failure, or like, because I think a lot of kids, they, unless they get that reassurance like you say, but they're afraid to fail, and
mm.
it's only when you're failing all the time that you're getting better. Like, you have to be in training, pushing yourself to that edge where it's, you're just, the pass doesn't go to hand because you're trying such a ridiculous one, or you're just working so hard and trying so hard to be the best that you're going to fail.
Yeah, and honestly, I just, when I look at things that are like, so for instance, the times that you're going to fail is when you're going into probably to moments where it's like you're really uncomfortable and you feel vulnerable because you don't know it inside out. So imagine me, 10 years at the top of my game, captain of the New Zealand Open Women's Touch team, and now I'm going to step into this team where all these superstars. I'm fucking nobody, and I'm
Yeah.
at the bottom of the pecking order. I'm used to like talking in the team huddles. I'm used to doing all this and leading. And then I just thought to myself, you know what, like, what can I do? What can I control in this uncontrollable environment, to help me and to I guess, never mind if I fail. And it was definitely like I thought, okay, my controllables, my fitness, my speed, work, all that kind of stuff, how I eat, how I am as an athlete, I can control all that. So I'm going to be the best person I can be in that area. And then my uncontrollables, rugby, I'm still learning. I'm going to make mistakes. So being okay with that. How do I help that? You should have seen me at one of my first trainings. I think I stopped the training about 62,000 times to ask questions, and everyone was getting pissed off, but I didn't care because I knew I didn't know. So I had to ask
Learn.
questions and learn, be open to growth, be open to getting yelled at by the team on the field. Niall, get out! What? Like constantly getting yelled at and not taking it to heart, just being like, okay, afterwards, why were you yelling at me? I don't know what I was doing wrong. Can you tell me? While you're looking at the ruck, but your player's out here on defense. How are you supposed to shut on her? And because heaps of times in touch, you're kind of always constantly looking at the play that's happening. But when I got to 70, you have to do that kind of 80-20 vision and then learning there's like 7 on the field now, but there was only 6 in touch and just little different things like, yeah, all of that kind of stuff, but being vulnerable enough to go and ask, and then if they yell at you, not taking it personal. I learnt that quite young from touch too, like having older people being in it opens when you're younger. Like, I don't know if it's just how I've been brought up, like that I've been enriched with so much love, things coming from a place of love. I always was able to take on criticism and all that stuff better rather than it being like feeling like it's attacking me. I mean, don't get me wrong, my ego still gets hurt sometimes, and I'm like, fuck, like calm down, or you go off a bit, or sometimes in my case I'll just go silent rather than saying something back. But I have learned probably to deal with constructive criticism a lot more, especially if the people I know it's coming from a place of love. Like, yeah, so
Yeah, you're lucky you learned that at a young age. It's because it's so easy to just take those things personally. Like someone shouts at you, but something I learned a while back is it's not that's their story or their thing. It's nothing. It's not you. It's not what someone else does
yeah,
is nothing got to do with you. Like they could be
yeah,
having a shitty day. They could be just anything could be going on in their life, and they take it out on you. And yeah, you just can't take things personally.
yeah. I 100% agree with that. And if you're going to be a professional athlete, you need to learn it quite quick because, like you said, when you're at the most pinnacle event and or whatever, when you've got that black jersey on, there's so much pressure on you as a team and individuals to perform your duties and your responsibilities and your roles and when you put that black jersey on, you open up the gate for criticism, not only from
Mm,
your teammates and your coaches, but from a whole lot of people. So you need to learn to be able to live with it and also block out the noise, the people who don't matter, the ones that don't have an impact on, that's not going to help you. If they're just there to bag you, you don't need to listen to that noise. It's nothing. Whereas you learn to take on the ones that the criticism that actually matters. And in the moment on the field, our team does a lot of work around our personalities and how we respond better to different situations. And
cool.
because, like, let's be real, like you said, everyone's different and they're all going through their different moments. And so, like you said, it's not your story, it's their story. And so how they are, like, the more I know about them, I'm like, oh, sweet. She's actually all good, even though she's yelling. She's sweet. That's just how
Yeah.
she's animated. Or else, oh fuck, she's gone quiet. Something must be up. I'm going to give her a bit of a boost to get up, like line, like. So I remember one time on the field, we were getting pumped by Australia, and I was kind of like, what the fuck is going on? And I was walking back, and I was like, fuck, like. And then Ruby walked past me, and she's like, love you also, like that. And then I was like, and it like just brought me back to the moment and like, fuck, it's all good, we're all in this together, like, because you start thinking, and getting a bit crazy in my head. And when she said it just brought me right back to that moment and to that connection, like,
Mm.
I'm here still with you, I still got your back, don't worry about the score, we just go again, like. And I was like, yeah, we go again. And different, yeah. So definitely learning about each other, how we tick, or what makes them tick, or what gets them up, what when they're down, little cues that we have. So I think that's really important.
That's so cool that you do that. That you like understand each other on a like personal one-on-one level, and so true what you say about different personalities and like even. I understand like playing with Polynesian people are generally quite different. I was chatting with Jimmy Goppert on the pod here, and he said the same. Like when he was growing up playing with the Hurricanes, like he can learn through doing how to interact with different people of different
Mm,
cultures. I suppose a broader one to do, but everyone within cultures are different as well. But like,
yeah.
what kind of stuff would you do to work on that?
So we actually have done like a couple of years ago. We done like personality tests. So they actually have things out, and you answer pretty much. You get given scenarios, and you answer how you would deal with that scenario. You all these different traits of
Mm,
people. You kind of tick your box that, and then it comes like it gets put in, and it goes around in a circle, and it pops out with your personality, and then it says these are the best ways to approach me, and these are the cues I have when blah blah blah. And so that's kind of like an overall one of about like kind of what type of person you are. But the other way is just talk to your mate, like
mm,
just sit down with Michaela Blind, like if she's my winger that day, if I'm playing centre and she's winger, and I just what does it mean when you're doing this, or if I see you doing this on the field, well, tell me when you need to get up, like, and literally like she could say to me, no, I need you to get me up. Yeah, sweet, fucking I'll get you up. Or Minnie, if I go silent, you know that you need to ask me, yo, what's going on now? And I need to say, I probably need to get something off my chest. And then it's also the next step is going, if this was to happen, would you actually have the capacity to take that on too? Because you can't
mm.
just to everyone, and then they're like, oh shit, and then it, inside they're going, oh, you're trying to work. Like you have to have that balance, because we're all out there trying to do our roles as well. We want to help each other as much as we can, but you don't want to offload all your stuff onto someone and then they're out the gate as well. Like, so definitely a balance, definitely a lot of talking, connection, and learning over the years too of different situations, scenarios, personalities, things like that.
That's cool because that's what like I said 90% of rugby is, like we get caught up sometimes in strategy, tactics, this, that, the other, but like if it's about connecting with each other on the field, isn't it? And understanding how we can get each other up and build each other up and yeah, and just connect and yeah.
Yeah, I think our team's massive in connection, and um, we had our first day back yesterday, and it was cool. They brought in the first ever Blackfern Sevens player, and then they also brought in another player who's a legend of the game, Linda Aitonu, and so we just call her Bindi. But she talked about like that connection is so important. How the connection you have off the field with your teammates is really important, and because it translates onto the field, like so the work each other does, the work ethic, everything, the respect and all that stuff that goes on off the field. Um, and then you see people training their ass off. You see them doing all the one percenters. So when you get on the field, you know, oh yeah, my sister's got my back next to me. The person standing either side of me, we've all got each other, and that's that connection. It's just got to be so strong, because it just takes one chink in the chain, and then it's like a domino effect, so you
Yeah.
can't, and so you need to constantly work on that, constantly work on our connection as a team, because and have the honest conversations. So one of the the links isn't thinking all these things because they don't want to, they're too scared to get it out, and then it just is like a flow on effect, and they pull out, and then it breaks the chain. So you got to have moments where that person speaks up, and then they all go, oh yeah, yeah, and then like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable again, and or I got that piece off my mind, and so other people know how you're feeling, and then we band together and we're still strong.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of work, doesn't it, to get that to a place where in a team you can have those kind of difficult conversations, where someone can pull you up and go, Niall, I think you're not working hard enough here, like that. Whereas a lot of teams won't be at a place where they'll say that and you'll just give out to them and it'll just everyone giving out to each other.
Mm, yeah. And it's taken like years for us to get to that place, and everything, um, I guess, impacts to get to that situation because of past traumas and stuff,
Yeah.
and things that have gone on, or how the person is, and so you have to work constantly, and the culture that we've set up in our team, like our circle of how we work, is just got into a place now that, like, yeah, like I've been sat down before and been told, blah blah blah, no, that's not good enough, and I'm like, yeah, sweet, all good, like I'll work harder, I'll do better in that area, or like even off field, like a conversation like, fuck, you're coming in here pretty down, like, and everyone can feel it. Is everything going on? Is everything like good? You know, what's
Mm.
going on? You want to talk, or if you don't want to talk to me, is anything I can do to help you? And to be able to be in that place and someone actually open up to you is pretty special. And almost it's like you go past being a rugby player, you're actually good
Yeah.
mates. And I think that's the most important part is we genuinely love each other. It's
Mm.
not I have to love you because you're my teammate. It's like I actually love you, and I want you to be the best player you can be. But first and foremost, I want you to be a happy, loving, you know, person, amazing person that you can be off the field. Because when you turn up in that zone, then I know it's going to translate onto the field. But also, I want you to know that you can be vulnerable, and that's massive. Like Alan Bunting, our old coach, who's just stepped away. He is the biggest driver in our team for being vulnerable, and he has a lot of moments where he stands up in front of us and he's been vulnerable, and it's inspired a lot of us to take that step into the unknown and speak and share and cry in front of each other, get angry in front of each other, and share your truth in front of each other, and still be loved, still be accepted, still get the hug after, and be like, you're still Niall to me. It's all good, like, and yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, well, good for him because I think I coach women now, and I think women are far, far better at that than men. I think hopefully men are getting better, but it is, yeah, so important, as you say, to be vulnerable and to not, you don't have to be the strongest, best all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, you know, I've actually, so in our high performance center where we train, sometimes we have like the men's team in like our All Black Sevens, or you have like um, the Chiefs, the Bay of Plenty Steamers boys, and I've had a couple of yarns with a couple of the men's team, and I just it's it's kind of heartbreaking to hear when you speak to them like, oh, how's things, you know, and if they're like a bit down or whatever, and you go, oh, you know, can you share that with your team? And they're like, oh, it's a bit hard. Like hearing that they, you know, there's these teams that are getting paid lots of money and stuff.
Mm,
So you would hope that they would invest more time into the mental health well-being of the players. And it's just, I know like New Zealand Rugby do, and they're putting lots into it, but it's like that stigma. It's the players. It's also got to be player driven, and people like Ari Savia, TJ Perenara, you know, they are coming out and being vulnerable and speaking up and things like that, and that are coming out with these like how they really feel. It's like it's just the best thing to see, and it's so great that okay, look, my a Pacific Islander is now the captain of the All Blacks. And he's sharing how like he was sad and you know struggled and all these things. And it's like this young kid who might be 16, Pacific Islander at his school team is like, oh, I didn't think you would feel like how I feel because you have everything in life, like,
yeah,
and that's the key. And once more players start following suit and opening up in those circles, I know there's a lot of players though, male players, which is amazing, in the circles trying to open up that space. They have coffee club, they have, you know, dinners or with the backs or whatever, and they have that circle to open up and speak. And I definitely feel like women are way ahead of men. I don't know if it's just our personnel or our
yeah,
makeup. We can
yeah.
definitely share better, but yeah, there's definitely room for improvement in the men's, but it is getting better, and we have some amazing role models leading that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like you said, RDC, like when he was in, what's he saying? They're like missing his family and all this, and it's so true because when you're a kid, I certainly know when I was a kid, you look at your role models or whatever, you think everything is just so easy for them, everything is brilliant, it's perfect. Their route to the top was just straight line,
Yeah,
never any difficulties, and
yeah,
then you're like, you get dropped, like you say, you're like, I'm a piece of shit, I'm nothing, and you all these things go on your head as a kid, and it's like, you're like, well, I'm never going to be anything because look, he's so perfect,
yeah.
and it's just not the case.
It's honestly, I it doesn't kind of, you know, like we all have different ethnicities, backgrounds, upbringings, but some struggled more than others, things like that. But it's never like a contest to see who came from the worst background and made it to the top. It should never be like that.
No.
Everyone struggles, and they're all valid. All your emotions, all your feelings that you feel is valid. And being able to talk about it, and being vulnerable is the first step. But it's that community, it's our world that we live in, accepting that too. Like, I remember when I put out the video, um, of when I obviously didn't make it to the Olympics, and then I was crying, and people were like, "Oh, she's just, she's a narcissist, and she's just trying to make people feel sorry for her." And I'm lucky I'm strong. Like, I'm a strong person, and I can
Mm.
wipe that noise out. But in my head, I'm like, it's people like you that have these 15-year-olds at home who just got an ACL, missed out on a team, and then they go and kill themselves
Yeah.
because they can't speak up, because
Yeah.
they're fear of what people are going to respond with. And the fact that it's so open now that people feel they have the right to sit there and write such cruel things to a young person playing sports or whatever it may be in their job, and they feel like they have the, it's actually like disgusting that they, and some of these people are grown adults going in. By all means, if you're an athlete and you've played, I know that that comes with it, the criticism of a game or whatever. But when you start attacking a person personally, that you have no idea what they've been through in their life, what situation, current state they're in, like, it's just so bad. So, um, for me, when I put that out, I put things out like that to be like, yep, every now and again you get a shit comment and you get someone, who's just that way. But look at what else you get. Look at all this love
Yeah.
and support. Like, I was so overwhelmed with the love and support that I got. And it did help me. It truly helped me. And it helped with that grieving process. And it made me, like, we're all human beings and we all need to feel loved and wanted, and just having that support. And like, there was messages that weren't even anything to do with rugby, that people, they would like, thank you, you're like, inspire me to be a better mum, or to share my emotions with my kids, and or just things that aren't even to do with rugby, following my journey. Like, that's what I appreciate, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, it's such a good point, and it's so difficult to block out those people, but it's so important to try and do it, like, because if you don't share that, or if people don't share things, others don't get inspired, others don't get motivated, and it's like, yeah, I feel it as well. Like, I think we all do feel it. You're afraid to do something, and then because there'll be the one person who'll write something shitty or whatever, versus the 99% that are like
Mm.
inspired and motivated, and yeah, you just got to keep remembering that you're helping those people.
Yeah, and I do, and I also do it to prove your point before that. Like, I'm literally living the dream. I couldn't, like, to be a professional athlete, get paid for it, but I do work hard, and there is like shitty sides, and I'm allowed to. All athletes, all people in their walks of life, when something bad happens, you're allowed to be sad about it, even
Yeah.
if you are in a
Yeah.
privileged spot. Like, you
Yeah.
can be sad. It's not like you get paid to play sports and travel the world and play for New Zealand, so stop complaining. Like,
Oh,
why?
that.
I just worked 5 years for a dream and it got taken away from me. And something I couldn't control. What am I supposed to be happy and just be grateful? Like, tell me, if you were working in your job to get a promotion for 5 years, and then something, one thing happened, and they go, "Oh, sorry, you can't have it anymore." So you're going to sit there and be like, "Oh, I'm just grateful to be here." Like, don't talk shit. Like,
Yeah, it.
tell the truth. Be you. Let's be vulnerable. Let's say how we feel. And for me, sharing it, because it's such a real part of being an athlete. Like, our lives as athletes, it's a real part. It's, we live this life, but it's such a risk because it can be taken away from us anytime.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It does my head in when people are like, "Who is she to be saying that she's upset? Who's that person to be saying, like, they get paid? They get on with it."
Mm.
It's like, these are people. Like,
Yes.
like, it's like they're
Yes.
people. It's like they have
Yeah.
emotion. They feel just like you and I. Like you say, the good example with the working in an office or whatever for a promotion. It's like, why? Just because I get a money into my bank account every month, like I all of a sudden don't feel anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I'm like, you're still a human being. It's not like we're robots out there. God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk to me about being a mother. Like, you're like, before the sevens, you're with the Touch Blacks, and like, you've been a top level athlete for whatever, like, a lot of years. And how is that like coming? Like, having a kid and then having to come back and
Yeah. um, Both my kids weren't planned. um, but definitely blessed with both of them. And I didn't, like, funny story was we actually had my first daughter's, I didn't know, but I was pregnant at my first daughter's first birthday.
oh
So that's kind of how close they are. They, like, my daughter's turning 8 later this month. And so they'll be 8, 9. And then in May, my other daughter turns 10. So it's actually been, yeah, I know, long time since I had my kids. But being a mum and being a pro athlete is, it's it's like, I don't know, it's amazing. And I'm very grateful because I get to have a whole world that's even more important than rugby outside of rugby.
mm,
um, I get to come home to and fully take off my rugby hat and just be a mum and not have to worry about that. I get to do all these things outside of rugby to take up my time, that I actually love and that I'm passionate about. I have two little people who love me no matter what. But then in saying that, on the other side, I have to find all this balance. I have to, I had to come back from, I think I put on about 15 to 20 kgs with each kid.
oh
Yeah, and so I had to come back from that journey. And my first time actually playing sevens, I went to Japan, and my youngest daughter was, she was 5 months old at the time when I went to my first sevens tournament. So obviously I got into training after her. I waited like 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, got the clear, could train, and I made the Auckland Sevens team to travel to Japan. And yeah, my daughter was like 5, 6 months, and so she was still on the boob, and we had to we had to pretty much cold turkey her. And so my partner would be in the bedroom, and I was in the lounge room, and he's trying to feed her, like I was expressing, and also formula, and she was just screaming. And only mums will know, or like dads who hear their kids crying for their mum, their babies crying for their mum, will understand how hard it was for me to sit in another room and hear my baby cry because she wanted me, and not go in there because I wanted to go to Japan and I needed her to be able to feed not off me.
mm,
And the guilt that I felt was almost too much for me, that I wasn't going to go to Japan and I wasn't going to start my sevens journey. I almost gave in, and I actually walked to the door a couple of times to be like, oh, don't worry, I'm not
yeah
going to just give her. And my partner was like, no, get out. We're gonna make this work. Like, just go. And so I'd be in the lounge room literally crying because I can hear her crying.
yeah
And then eventually, like, I would go quiet, and then he'd come out and have an empty bottle, and he was like, oh, she took it. But pretty much she cried so much, she would have, like, she was crying while she was drinking and then fall asleep because she was so
so
exhausted from crying. And we had to do that for like 2 weeks prior leaving to Japan. And then while I was over there, my first tournament, I was still expressing in that. Mid tournament, like after each game, I'd have to express. So um, that's like a unique journey that you'd only a few of the ladies have obviously come back into the sevens, and from being a mum, you got Kayla McAllister, Les Alder, I think Charmaine Smith, who's an ex Blackfoot, and she's trying to come back to, like, these journeys, of motherhood and living side by side. So many think it can't be done, but it's just nice to be not a trailblazer, because I know even back in the day before it was professional, so many mums have played sports and come back. But almost like I love being at the forefront, showing that journey.
yeah
Yeah,
oh you're incredible, that's incredible, yeah. And it's what a mother to have them, for them growing up looking at you crushing it and getting after it.
thank you. I had a
And
pretty cool mum too, and a nana, so I'm pretty
me too.
lucky.
I had a cool mum as well. Yeah, me as well. You've an unreal your time. One last thing, when you mentioned there, like starting your sevens journey, when so you were at the top of the top with the touch, and then the Olympics obviously was happening, and women's sevens was starting. But like, how was that? Maybe as another kind of trend running in the family, or but like switching from the top of one thing and taking the leap. Like it's it must be so easy to just stay in the touch.
Yeah, I So there's a couple of players who actually played touch. I played touch New Zealand women's with them, and they were in the sevens squad at that time. So like Morgan Morrow and Tyler Nathan Wong. And I was talking with my touch coach Pete Walters. So he's the one who he went and he said to me, I think it was like maybe 3 years out from Rio, and he said, "Oh look, there's a go." Off, no, it would have been 4 years because they just started in 2012. And he said, "There's a Go for Gold campaign for the Rio Olympics." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he just said, "Oh, like they're getting all these girls together from anywhere, and they have camps, and they pick a squad, and you kind of train whilst working at that time to try and be in the team to go to the build up to the Olympics." And I said, "Oh no, I'm not, no thanks." And he was just like, "No, I think you can do it." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to tackle anyone," because I actually said to him, "What, like tackle?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was
Yeah.
like, "No." And I mean, like, I'd been roughed up a lot of times from my brothers during our years in rugby and in league in the lounge room,
Yeah.
but it was just like so intimidating. You see these girls, how big they are, and you're like, "Oh no, I'm all good." And he just said, "No." He goes, "No, I think you're going to go Olympics." Like, and I was like, "This guy's so delusional." Like, anyway, fast forward, goes and gets the Auckland Sevens coaching job. So not only does he want me to transfer, he transfers himself over to be a coach, and he gets that, and then he goes, "Sweet, come to the trainings." And I was
Yeah.
like, and so yeah, that's when I went to one of the trainings, and actually he had invited Alan Bunting, but I didn't know who Bunce was. I didn't know he was the New Zealand Sevens coach at the time, assistant coach at the time. And he came to the training, and he says, "Now, I always remember meeting you, now, because you were the girl in the team who kept putting your hand up." And he goes, "And I could tell you wanted to be perfect straight away." And he goes, "He loved it, like everything I told you, you done, and you would ask other questions to be better." And he goes, "And I could remember it was frustrating you that you couldn't be like what you needed to be right then and there." And he goes, "So I knew that if you got involved, you would learn real fast because of your thirst to learn and be better." And he goes, "And also like so in that Auckland Sevens team, like half of them were New Zealand Sevens players."
Yeah.
So I was already lucky enough to be surrounded by the best.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it just kind of kicked off from there. And then I went to the Auckland Sevens. Then I come back and I played the nationals. And I remember talking to Sean Horan, who was the ex-coach at the time, and Bunce was one of the what do you call it? He was the assistant coach, and he come up to me after nationals and was like, "Oh, like we want you in the team, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And then they go, "So we want to give you a training contract." And I was like, "Oh," like that's when I was like, "Oh, what, you get like money? Like how good?"
Yeah.
And so yeah, kind of just built. Um, the funniest part though, I'll tell a little story. The funniest part was when I first met Sean Horan. So Pete was still coaching and I was a coach. He Pete goes to me, "Come meet me at." So I was pregnant with Tatum Lee. And at that time, so that was 2012 when the Go for Gold just started, and they were down at the touch fields looking for players. And Pete had always, so he knew Bunce, so he said, "Yeah, I want you to meet Niall. Like she's gonna be in your team. She's gonna come to the Olympics," and yarning on about me because I was pretty much like his daughter, and giving me this big rap. And then he goes, "Come meet me at Field 4." And I was like, "Oh yeah." So I waddled over, and I said hi, and they go, "Oh yeah, hi, hi." And then I go, "Oh Pete, we're just going to McDonald's. Do you want anything?" And then like he's like looking at me like, "No, I don't." Like, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh okay, like calm down." And then Sean's like, "Oh hi, I'm Sean. I'm the coach of the New Zealand Sevens Women's." And I was like, "Ah." And so I'm
Yeah.
like sitting there talking about Macca's,
Yeah.
like 8 months
Big.
pregnant, like and Pete's trying to say this girl's gonna be in your team for Rio
Yeah.
Olympics.
She's the best
And I'm
athlete, the most
about
professional.
oh, yeah, and I'm about 90 kgs. Oh, sorry, I don't know what has come up on this computer and how to get rid of it.
You're all good. I can see anyway.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you
Oh
perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, so he's so I'm fully like pregnant, and they're like, "This chick's gonna be in our team." And Pete's like, "No, she's actually really amazing. You just got to give her in." By the time that nationals happened, that I told you about, and they came and they wanted to offer me a training contract, Sean was like, so I had another kid in that time too. And Sean was like, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you not injured and not pregnant for once, like, and finally get to see you play." And uh, Bunce talks about too the first time he actually seen me play sevens, and like I was fresh, like I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, man, I'm just gonna like. So I'd gone to the Auckland Sevens tournament. I remember my first tackle. I went on the wrong side,
Oh,
and
head.
her knee went straight into my eye, so I had a full black eye, and I was like, okay, no, I can do this. I'm sure I can do this, and then but I really enjoyed that tournament, and the people I was with were so amazing. Like that, and they straight away I knew like, oh man, I can love this sport. And then I came back, and they put a competition on here in New Zealand. It was called Super Series, and pretty much anyone who wanted to try get seen, to be a part of the New Zealand teams, you made
Mm,
your team, and it was all provincial based. And I was obviously in the Auckland Waitakere kind of team, and I went down, and the first play remember I was playing first five, and I got the ball off the scrum, and I kind of, this was Bunce. He was like, I remember it because I was going to Sean, this is the girl. This was before that nationals. This is the one. And I got the ball, and I ran, and I went to the outside of my play, and the centre came in, and I kind of did like a little offload on that behind her, and then my
yeah.
centre ran through and scored. And he said that he was like, oh man, Niall, you just like, because I was like, she's gonna be good, and Sean was like, yeah, we'll see. And then I did that one kind of play, and he just said like from then there was like, oh yeah, she's got it. Like she doesn't really know what she's doing, but if she can do that in contact in kind of one of her first proper tournaments against other players, like she's gonna be good. And I was like, oh, lucky I practiced or studying all those times, and with the cushions and stuff. So no, but yeah, I definitely have been lucky that a lot of people have shifted what they'd been doing in their life to try help me achieve goals that I didn't even think were possible. And yeah, so I was training contract for those first couple of years from sevens, and I think like my first contract was 7.5 grand for the year.
Yeah.
And then you just went into camps because they weren't centralized, and you went into camps, and each camp you got like a few $100s or whatever. And I just thought this was amazing. They gave me like half a bag of kit that was all probably the leftovers because it was massive, but I was like, whoa, look at all this Adidas gear, this is so mean. And I remember wearing the shoes all the time and the hoodie all the time that I got. And then the next year I got upgraded to another training contract, but it was 15 grand. So it was like the
Nice.
better of the training. And then the following year I got put on a full time, and it would have only been about, I think, 40 grand. Um, but I'd come from being a postie. So I
Yeah.
was making 35 grand a year.
Wow.
And then now it's just growing and growing each year. And, you know, at the moment, I'm just in such a blessed position financially. Me and my partner brought our house down here in Tauranga,
Nice.
and we just never would have been in this position if we didn't take a leap of faith. But also if those people around me, my family, didn't support me all those mornings training, looking after baby. The coaches, Sean and Bunce didn't take that chance to sign, like, they signed me. Pete Walters didn't go and change his whole job to get me into the sevens. And then also, all my mates along the way who have taken time out to help me in sevens rather than be like, oh, you're just a touch player, go away. They actually like put a hand out and said, you know what, like, yeah, ask questions and we'll help answer them, we'll help you become a better player. So yeah, definitely lucky. Well,
Awesome.
blessed.
Yeah, well, congrats on buying the house. And but the thing is, as well, with people, people do things for good people as well. Like you'll do someone if you see something in someone, you'll go out of your way to help them. So I think it works both ways as well. They obviously saw something in you. Thanks so much for your time. I've absolutely loved chatting. It's been unreal.
That's all good. Yeah, I love chatting too. It's nice to I like your questions. Like it's just cool to go back to different memories, and you bring up there, and it kind of sparks your memory and you start thinking of other things. So I'll definitely go and contact a few people now from my touch days and just say hello and that. So no, thank you as well. It's been awesome.
Cheers. Yeah, well, no, it's been unreal learning, hearing more, and yeah, it's been class.
Awesome.